Good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to the April 19th edition, Tuesday, April 19th edition of WrestleTalkShow. I'm your host, Joshua Zimmerman, here to bring you the latest and greatest professional wrestling news, bits, rumors. We have TNA's latest pay-per-view, full coverage of that, wins, losses. A big discussion point, Kurt Angle almost suffers a neck-breaking injury after taking an almost botched power bomb by Jeff Jarrett, but that'll be discussed a little later. WWE releases a developmental wrestler, The Rock, to appear again the beginning of May for his birthday. All this and more, so let's get right into it. First and foremost, like we always do, or always try to do rather, I shouldn't say always, is we want to thank you for your viewership and your comments. A lot of you commented on the most recent video. I'm beginning to think you didn't like the last installment because it's the latest video, but it has the least amount of page views. Maybe the tags got screwed up when you're in the search options. Maybe it's not coming up. I'll have to look at that. But maybe it just wasn't an interesting topic, and that's a segue into what I'm about to announce here. We don't expect you to like every video. That's why we express multiple times throughout the show. Send your feedback, good, bad, controversial. Call me controversial. Call me out on things that I said. Ask a question. This is a review show, totally up for debate, guys, and the key point sells itself. It's intended to be a fully interactive wrestling show where I want your voice, where the show is based on the wrestling fan's voice. So never hesitate again to submit emails via cwecompany@gmail.com. cwecompany@facebook.com is our new email. Like I said last video, we just activated that, and I haven't really used it yet. So if somebody wants to send a test email to make sure it works, but the Gmail account definitely works. Visit the show site at WrestleTalkShow.webs.com. Visit this video as well as the 100+ archive videos at youtube.com/cwecompany. Also on our website, you can donate financially via PayPal, as little or as much as you want. And as always, like we always say, the next best thing to donating, we understand economic hardship. So if you cannot donate, the next best thing is word of mouth. Refer a friend to help us get our subscribers up. Remember, when you're at the YouTube page, remember to like, subscribe, and or comment directly under the video. Every video, I want to hear the feedback. I want to build the fan base even bigger. We have 41 solid subscribers. I'd like to see it doubled in the next 2 weeks, but maybe that's asking a little much. And another segue into that about the subscriptions is our logo contest running from the 15th to May 14th at midnight. On May 15th show, you have to have your submissions in by midnight May 14th for the announcement on May 15th show. And the only stipulations, there are only two, is that you either use the lettering WTS for Wrestle Talk Show or the full show name. It's completely up to you. I've gotten a couple submissions so far, and I look forward to more from each and every one of you. So let's stop with the particulars and get right into your wrestling news. As much as I've searched, guys, I hate to be a downer at this party, but I cannot find the Raw rating. It'll probably come out within the next 3 hours. As corny as this sounds, the PW Torch didn't seem to have it, and all the references I used didn't seem to have it. I binged it, I Googled it, and I can't find it, but it's completely feasible that I overlooked it. Ratings for two of the shows for last week. WWE Friday Night SmackDown for April 15th, 2011 scored a 2.5 cable rating, and that's the show that featured Edge's farewell address. And TNA Impact for the day before that, Thursday, April 14th, scored a 1.36 with an average of 1,847,000 viewers. Again, like I said, Tough Enough and Raw ratings I have not found for last night, but I imagine, since Smart Wrestling Fan always seems to have them, that they will be up by 9 p.m. And if I see them, if I'm up, I will post them as an attachment or a comment to the video. That way you have them. Let's move on to your wrestling news and rumors. The date for WWE's 2011 first quarter conference call has been announced. Vince McMahon to again host the call with WWE investors. WWE will report first quarter 2011 results on Thursday, May 5th, prior to the stock market opening, and this came as a WWE announcement today. TNA LOCKDOwn, the retail price was $34.95 plus your average taxes and fees. The question of the day is, was it worth the price? We'll come back to that in a minute. WWE Draft. Again, we apologize for the confusion we may have caused, but the draft has formally been announced via pwtorch.com for April 25th, 2011, and it's open for interpretation, as it's believed that neither side has a lot of depth to justify a draft. To simplify it, who do you take from SmackDown that hasn't already been on Raw to elevate Raw, and who do you take from Raw that hasn't already been on SmackDown to elevate SmackDown? Both sides, it's the same question. TNA news, and this is available, this video, I might post it on the site. I really don't like listening to this man talk, because I'm a firm believer that most times he just likes to hear himself talk. But if you're interested, go to prowrestling.net, and I may pull it depending on if you guys ask for it or not. But if you want a direct link to it, visit prowrestling.net. TNA news, Matt Hardy teases retirement for brother Jeff, saying that Matt Hardy posted his latest YouTube video and talked about Edge's retirement about 2 minutes into the over 6-minute installment. He says that Jeff Hardy may have to have back surgery and may consider retiring. He doesn't provide any details other than, quote, maybe. WWE hires new creative team member who has a history in daytime soap operas. Tom Colicillo announced on his Twitter today that he has been hired for WWE Creative. Colicillo has won multiple Emmys for his work on daytime soap operas. I can't talk tonight, guys. Including Another World, As the World Turns, One Life to Live, Days of Our Lives, and The Young and the Restless. This is just a joke, but One Life to Live is about to go off the air if it hasn't already. Is that an indicator? You tell me. Like we hyped in the beginning of the show, The Rock is advertised to be back in Miami as the WWE Monday Night Raw brand takes over the American Airlines Arena on Rock's birthday, May 2nd, 2011, and it's being advertised as that. The People's Champion comes back home for the biggest birthday celebration of all time. Interpretation is it gives The Rock a chance to hype up WrestleMania 28, bring his friends, family out, and that's what we can expect. But the key question is after we just had a ample sampling of Rock, is it too soon before his WrestleMania match to bring him back? And the fear is wrestling fans will get burnt out on Rock before this match happens. We'll interpret that. We'll discuss that in a minute. I'm just going to run through your news because normally I get caught up in stuff and these videos run longer than they need to and reiterate too many points multiple times. Another show correction. In a story we broke last week about the linebacker for the St. Louis Rams who said, who's the son of Road Warrior Animal. He's quoted as, he says he was misquoted basically and said that he more or less meant to say, or was supposed to be typed out, that James said the story in the Lantern was misstated and stated that what he really said was that if his NFL career was cut short for whatever reason, wrestling would be an option for him, not that he would definitely go to wrestling. WWE board member, after 15 years, calling it quits, saying he needs a fresh perspective. Former Connecticut Senator and Governor Low Wicker Jr. has resigned from WWE's board of directors, ending a 15-year run serving on WWE's oversight body. The Greenwich Time reported Wecker's resignation and obtained a quote from Wecker claiming it was just, quote, a mutual decision. WWE's official stance is leaning more toward the company wanting different viewpoints on the board, considering WWE's change in direction, expanding the business model. Quote, you may have read we are implementing a new business model, so the company feels that it is a good time to identify new directors to provide a fresh perspective to the company, said WWE spokesman Robert Zimmerman, no relation by the way. The newspaper that broke this story, which is the Greenwich Times, speculated on whether Wecker's resignation could be political, considering Wecker refused to endorse former WWE CEO Linda McMahon for U.S. Senate in 2010. McMahon also served on the board but resigned prior to her Senate campaign, as we all already knew. And as I put out this cigarette butt, it's a segue into the next story. Anti-smoking advocate demands an apology from WWE superstar. WWE gives storyline explanation. In a report obtained by TMZ, the executive director of TobaccoFree.org is demanding an apology from R-Truth after the Angle on Monday night. I'm assuming this is yesterday's or last week's, probably last night's, considering the story broke this morning. Demanding an apology from R-Truth after the Angle on WWE's Raw episode where R-Truth lit up a cigarette. According to a report by TMZ, Executive Director Patrick Reynolds told TMZ, quote, for him to smoke in front of children is irresponsible. At best, it's thoughtless. And at worst, if he calculated appealing to kids by posing as a bad boy outlaw, it's evil, end quote. WWE issued a statement to TMZ in response. The negative effects smoking has on one's health and physical performance was part of a storyline on last night's Monday Night Raw. Negative depictions of tobacco use on television are not unusual and can be seen on other TV PG shows. Which, I mean, most of us would make the statement, oh, they're running away from it, but this is kind of splitting hairs. I mean, if you watch wrestling, I don't want to assume too much here, but I mean, isn't that kind of some the demographic, if not part of the demographic that watches it? That's like, I mean, I don't want to compare it, but that's like, where was the advocate when Stone Cold comes to the ring with, or when Stone Cold came to the ring with the cooler full of beer? And sometimes you seen what kind of beer he was drinking, and sometimes you didn't. That sent a bad message, but it seemed okay at the time. Just to sum it up, I mean, and I've said this about a lot of things, this show included, but it just sounds like somebody's splitting hairs. WWE, if you look at this and then look at the way WWE has been going, if you ask me now, I'd say nobody's been able to get anything on the company lately because they've been riding the PG train, so to speak. And I think, again, not to repeat myself too many times, this is just another way to split hairs by this advocate. And I think WWE's right in saying it. You can turn on Law and Order, and with no disrespect intended, the girl playing the role of the hooker will probably step out to talk to, just a scenario, step outside to talk to police and light up a cigarette. NCIS Alone, which I'm a big fan of, a couple episodes ago, the primary suspect goes out to talk to McGee, if you're familiar with the show, Agent McGee, and lights up a cigarette right on the show. Now, there are ways to, we could go back and forth on whether or not she was really smoking it, but the implication was made, and it's a PG show. But, just to sum it up, it's splitting hairs, and I think that they can't get WWE right now on anything else, so this is what they're going for. As of this morning, it's rumored, I'm waiting on confirmation for this, where I hear it from a more credible source, but one of the websites I looked at while gaining information for today, while gaining the run sheet for today's show and what we were going to talk about, WWE developmental wrestler Jackson Andrews has been released from Florida Championship Wrestling, the developmental program headed by World Wrestling Entertainment. You may remember Jackson Andrews appeared for a short time playing the part of Tyson Kidd's bodyguard. And now we come to the grimmer part of the show. The coverage of TNA LOCKDOWN that happened this past Sunday, April 17th, 2011. We'll go through your recaps, and then we'll go through the notes, and then we'll break down the matches, as I got the matches after I got the side notes. That made a lot of sense, didn't it? But it was sent backwards. It was no fault of mine. But all in all, it's the same. AJ Styles made his TV return to help Fortune defeat Immortal in the main event. Lethal Lockdown cage match. Styles was temporarily written off TV via an injury angle at the hands of Bully Ray in March. Mickie James, as you'll read about in a minute, captured the TNA Knockouts title from Madison Rayne in a match that went less than 1 minute. It was the only title change on the pay-per-view. Sting retained the TNA World title over Mr. Anderson and Rob Van Dam in an 8-minute title match that was placed in the semi-main event slot. During the match, Hulk Hogan came to ringside to try and help RVD, who turned down Hogan's offer. Sting then pinned Anderson with the Scorpion Death Drop. TNA continued to hint at a Sting versus Hogan match down the line. Hogan teased entering the cage after Sting's title retention, but indicated the, quote, match would happen on, quote, his time. And here we go to recap. Like I said, this is a segue into one of the many topics we'll be discussing over the next couple of weeks after we launch the Chris Benoit thing. We are working on, you guys are great with submitting your topics. Now we're facing a point where we don't know which one to tackle first, but we're going to stick with our plan and giving you an in-depth coverage on Chris Benoit, and I kind of hinted at it in the last video, which maybe that's why it didn't get the attention that all the other videos have gotten about respecting Chris Benoit, the wrestler, and not the man. It was right in the title. So if that's the problem, then it's been identified, and I don't apologize for that. I have my own views. You're more, again, as we mentioned at the beginning of the top of the show, you're welcome to disagree. I encourage it. If you feel that I'm wrong, pose those questions, submit those questions, cwecompany@gmail.com, direct quotes at Facebook and Twitter, both at CWE Company. YouTube.com/CWE Company. After you're done watching a video, you can like and post your comment directly under the video. But let's get into it. Your pre-show match was Brother Devon versus Narkula. And I still can't pronounce that. No shame in saying that. Devon versus your interpretation of this. And Devon emerges your winner after 2 minutes and 30 seconds of wrestling. Next up is your X Division Ultimate Escape match, #1 contender match. It's an 8-man bout with Max Buck versus Jeremy Buck versus Chris Sabin versus Suicide versus Robbie E versus Jay Lethal versus Amazing Red versus Brian Kendrick. In short, your winner was Max Buck after 13 minutes and 33 seconds of wrestling. Next up is a tag match. Scott Steiner and Crimson versus the British Invasion versus Ink Inc. And Ink Inc. wins after 8 minutes and 51 seconds of wrestling. The Knockouts Championship match, Madison Rayne and Mickie James, with Mickie James' hair on the line. Interpret this how you will. Mickie gets a quick DDT and captures the title in under 40 seconds. To be exact, the match length was clocked at 36 seconds. So it was an in and out, so to speak. Next up is Samoa Joe. Joe wins via submission after 10 minutes and 25 seconds of wrestling. Next up, Matt Morgan versus Hernandez. Morgan wins after 8 minutes and 13 seconds of wrestling. Jeff Jarrett versus Kurt Angle in an Ultimate Male match. Best of 3 falls is the best way to put that. Jarrett wins 2 falls to 1 after 22 minutes and 37 seconds of wrestling. TNA World Heavyweight Champion Sting versus Rob Van Dam versus Mr. Anderson 3-way TNA World Title match. Sting retains after 7 minutes and 55 seconds of wrestling. And I concur with all the other reviewists that it was a weak match and could have gone longer for what you sold as your main event. I don't know. I'd be pretty disappointed if, this was my main event. And the whole lockdown concept, no one was really locked down. It's just a prop that for some wrestlers during this pay-per-view, it gave them an excuse to do stupid stuff, as we'll segue right into it. And up for discussion, Kurt Angle takes a badly timed powerbomb where it looked like his neck was going to be broken in half with all the weight of Jeff Jarrett on top of him. Angle got his neck straight at the last possible second, but we're criticizing it because he put the business, primarily the business. This is just stupid. He took the powerbomb for no apparent reason, and the way he took it, there was no reason to be that risky. And he put his family at stake, and the company at stake, and the general business, because all we needed to happen was, even the announcers were shocked when it happened. The ref immediately checked on Kurt Angle, but it could have easily gone from that to Kurt Angle's paralyzed to Kurt Angle's dead. And there's criticism for that. And that kind of goes into our segment for the show. The wrestlers do what the wrestlers do. I mean, we all were big fans of the Jeff Hardy stuff and the high flying and the risk taking, and there's enough risk in wrestling nowadays that it's a dangerous sport. The please don't try this at home stuff. But where are to concur with my colleague Wade Keller and the PW Torch and anyone else that has commented in this effect, is when are the agents of TNA, your Vince Russo's, your Eric Bischoff's, instead of patting the guy on the back for unneeded and downright stupid spots. When is the management team going to step up and say, you don't have to do this to achieve this effect? It's rumored that Kurt Angle embraces the wow effect he gets. He always tries to be one step ahead of whatever he did last time, which is good. And there's people that call Kurt Angle like obsessed with wrestling. He thinks that doing this, according to one fan, will make TNA look like a threat to WWE. And I got to agree with the fan when he outright said, that's not going to happen in Kurt Angle's lifetime. Not with how the shows are booked, how the pay-per-views are booked, things like this that happen when your management more or less had to know. It had to be discussed that this move was going to come up. So someone should have been there to analyze whether or not it was necessary or needed to tell the story in the ring. And like I said a minute ago, most of us concur that this was not needed. It put Kurt Angle at risk. It put the business that we love at risk. It put TNA as a company at risk. And management needs to stop letting the wrestler decide. And when they're running through the match, be like, instead of the current scenario where you're sacrificing yourself for the company and you did great for the company, attaboy, to what the fuck are you thinking? This is extreme. Even to go as far as to say, when Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle were talking it out, I'm not going to do that. This is insane. I don't want to feel like a D'Lo Brown after Droz' injury. I don't want to feel like an Owen Hart after Stone Cold's neck injury with that pile driver, etc., etc. So the moral of the story here, boys and girls, as the show comes to a close, a little quicker show than we usually do, is when are the agents going to be responsible for what the workers do? There's a difference between go out and sell the match and go out and sell the match with moves and stunts that aren't really necessary. And that's a key factor here. When does a line get drawn by management? Hey, we don't have to do this to tell this story. There are other ways to go about it. And even, like I just said, outright saying, no, Kurt, you're not going to do that. Or no to anyone. There are too many, as we reported earlier in the week, Larry Sweeney, even though it wasn't a wrestling-related death, it's still the death of wrestlers, along with another one that died last week. An independent wrestler also died. Listen to the latest edition of SmartWrestlingFan.com outside of tonight's edition. We'll do our plugs in a minute. But I concur. You don't have to damn near kill yourself to tell a story. And I think a misinterpretation will start to get built here. So let's rectify it right away. Storytelling's great. But storytelling where someone almost in reality dies on something or paralyzed, that's something that's supposed to be scripted, especially with Edge's recent retirement because of all his injuries. And not to bring up his name again, but both companies are sort of guilty of it. Chris Benoit, not right before, but he took time off to have neck fusion surgery. And when he came back, he was doing flying headbutts from the top rope. And it was called upon that, hey, do what you do with the chair shots or like you would do with a wellness policy. Fine, suspend, or terminate. There has to be limitations. The scripting means nothing if these guys are going to damn near kill themselves. That wasn't the message I was trying to send with storytelling. Like, if TNA is listening to this, and I know Eric Bischoff listens to his critics and kind of tries to one-up them from time to time, so I really hope I'll put him in the tags to intentionally make sure he listens to this. Eric, step up. Stop being a manager on paper, stop being an on-air talent, and start taking care of your talent for the risks they take. They take huge risk with very little respect or gain from your end. And the least you can do is make sure everyone's going to operate the safest way they know how. No one needs to intentionally be hurt. That was not the message over the last 6 months when I said bring back storytelling. A man doesn't have to damn near die, and Kurt's just as guilty. Don't think I'm jumping on a high horse here. But a man doesn't need to damn near die to achieve the impact, to make the crowd, just so the crowd can, and the fans at home, even though a lot of people I talked to said when they saw it, they were scared shitless. It's not good TV. It's not good for business. It doesn't accomplish anything. And if this is how you took my messages, you completely missed the fucking point. But moving on. And to our recent fan, you know who you are, who commented on a video we are working on. I put the first, doing it in pieces, but I started working on the first piece of it. We're going to do no pun intended, but like a retro TNA and show you what TNA had that was good. One thing that I'll highlight before just as a preview to the show, is I think the insertion of Vince Russo was unneeded. I think a lot of things went downhill in 2008. He was appointed as the head of authority, or key booker, as they called the head of authority. And if you notice, ever since then, or give or take a year or two before that, the X Division means less and less. I mean, let's take this a bit further. You look on TNA's Wikipedia page, and the X Division was part of their building blocks. Literally, it's mentioned in the first 2 paragraphs. And then you start getting down to swap outs of management, swap outs, disagreements on creative, the insertion of Vince Russo, the fallout from that between the former head of authority. I think you see some signs here. You have the insertion, and I'm being very vague intentionally, it's just a preview, but the insertion of Vince Russo, and kind of how the X Division was a selling point, but now it just gets tacked into the pay-per-view because, well, they don't want to outright. I mean, we were reporting a year ago that they were getting ready to, or 6 months, if not better, more than 6 months ago, that there were rumors that they were going to scrap it and reformulate it. And every time they go back to the drawing board, you get the same thing. They try and make it mean something, but it's like the WWE title. They've made it meaningless for so long, it's going to take more than 1 or 2 pay-per-view matches to bring back or re-entice those fans of the X Division and show, even if it's to suspend belief or, suspend reality for a moment, you have to first make it known that the X Division and or title and or whatever you're promoting means something to you. If you treat the X Division matches as just another match, then the fans are going to go with you and shrug it off or pay attention to it as you are. If you as a company show no interest in whatever you're promoting, then you've already succeeded in relaying to the fans that they shouldn't care either. So when these matches do happen, you've already been given the impression that it's just a spot in the show, or a spot, the televised show, or a spot in the pay-per-view that you're just threw together to fill the space between your last big match and your next big match. But it's up for debate. Watch this video and many more on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CWE Company. Tune in tonight, 6 p.m. Actually, well, 9 p.m. Eastern tonight, smartwrestlingfan.com for their 3-hour podcast. I'm sure they'll have their own insight on lockdown. I'm interested to hear Joe Negron's input. The PW Torch, pwtorch.com, has a Monday through Friday podcast. ProWrestling.net with Jason Powell. That's an interesting one. I just downloaded the archive to iTunes, and I'm having a lot of fun watching that. It's fun to get perspective from all sorts of different people. That way you don't have tunnel vision on the way you feel. If that were the case, we'd be doing the 3-hour videos, and I would just constantly repeat myself. CWEcompany@gmail.com, CWEcompany@facebook.com. Submit, preferably to the Gmail account. Submit for the logo contest. The new, what will be as of May 15th, before 9 p.m. Eastern, the new logo for WrestleTalk Show. And again, the only stipulations in the logo are that you use the initials WTS or the full WrestleTalk Show name. As reiterated, as mentioned at the top of the show, submissions are due in by midnight, May 14th, to have the winner named and the prize determined on the May 15th show that will be uploaded and posted, again, no later than 9 p.m. Eastern on May 15th. Or I might be up late May 14th and post it to get the 15th out of the way. Either way, it'll be on the 15th. All this and more at WrestleTalkShow.webs.com. Interact with our online forum. Ask a question, post a question, reply to questions already there. Support the show, refer a friend. Check out our PayPal link. Donate as little or as much as you want. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have your Monday Night Raw and recent ratings. And we hope you enjoyed the show. And again, stay tuned for Smart Wrestling Fan at Smart Wrestling Fan. Stay tuned for Smart Wrestling Fan Wrestling Review Show. Tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. It usually runs, depending on if they're running late, from 9 to 12. If not better, if they're running late, 12:30, 1 o'clock. So, all this and more, guys. Thanks again for your viewership. And remember, any feedback is good feedback. Let me know how you feel, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a great night.